Hey there, sisterhood. April here, and I'm so excited to launch you into the universe of What's Her Superpower? Superpowers, sisterhood, secrets revealed. What's Her Superpower explodes onto the scene, alternating between real talk solo episodes and electrifying guest interviews.
I went into the military active duty in 1980. I actually went in on delayed enlistment. I actually signed the paperwork in 1979. I was in the Air Force because I was born into the Air Force and it was familiar to me and I wanted to stay familiar. Although I almost went in the Navy because I loved their dress whites until I was told that they don't wear those a lot. And so I went into the Air Force. I hadn't planned on doing 20 years, but that's just what happened. And here I am.
Right. So when you say here I am, what does that look like for you now?
Oh, that's a jerk. That's a whole nother. We need a whole hour for that. No. It was understanding where I was transition wise, realizing that I had these skills that we don't really understand that we have until we're no longer in the military, and putting them into play, meaning that I thought I was going to get out and get a management job because I was a project manager in the Air Force. And that didn't happen because no one wanted to hire me, even with 20 years of experience. But I'd always had one foot in the fitness industry. And so I talked to my husband and I said, can we try this? Let me see, give me 6 months. And if I can't make it happen, I'll get what I said, regular job. And that was 2000. And I'm still doing fitness today.
Nice. So doing fitness, you own your own business?
I do. I launched Small Space Pilates about 2 years ago, and it's been amazing. So I'm very happy about it.
What was some of the challenges that you experienced when you got out of the military, transitioning into civilian life?
Well, I don't know if anyone else has felt this way, but I felt like I was, if anybody's into sports, that first round college draft pick. Okay. I walked outside with my DD 214 and I expected balloons and music. There's a party, companies throwing their contracts at me. Come with us, come work for us. And that didn't happen. And I thought, okay, do I have the right day? So what's wrong? And I kept walking and I started this free floating where I just thought, what is this? Because no one ever talked about it. And the only thing I can relate it to was, there would be people that would retire or leave the military and they would come back to the squadron in civilian clothes. And you're like, why are you here? And now I get it. I get it. And so we were living in South Carolina. We moved to Massachusetts, where the closest base was 5 hours away. And I have lived on bases all my life, from childhood up to the point where I actually left the military. And you feel isolated. You feel alone. No one understands your service or why you went in. And so I didn't really talk about it. So I felt very, just by myself. Even my husband's a veteran, but he had been out for a while. And so even he didn't understand. They're like, well, you get a job and you keep going. And I thought, there's something else going on. And what I didn't realize is that I was mourning my service. Mm-hmm. I was missing my military people. Yeah. And I didn't realize that was going to happen. And so it took me maybe about 6 months to a year to start to really feel like I thought that I had gotten through transition. But there's always things that trigger it a little bit. Even today, I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm still transitioning. But it was a difficult go. more so than I expected.
Yeah. And I think that is, and you nailed it when you said nobody talks about it.
Mhm.
And because I felt the same way. And that's one of the reasons I want to do this, is because I want women to realize you're not a unicorn. There's nothing wrong with you. We all went through that. And I mean, this year will be 10 years since I've been out. And I'm just now getting to the point where I feel like, okay, I have a good grasp of like what my purpose is, what my why is, all these things that people tell you. And you're like, I don't even know where to start on that. How do you know what your purpose is? My purpose for 20 years was being in the military.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's difficult. I think it's different for women. I won't say it's more difficult for women, but women veterans, it's a different way of transitioning than it is for men. We get out of the military and, maybe we still have kids. We're trying to find schools. We're trying to find a job. Maybe we've moved. We're trying to find a home. And who has time to figure out where the other veterans are?
Yeah.
And then when you do, when you get your feet settled and then you're looking around going, wait, what's wrong with this picture?
Mhm.
And that's when you start trying to figure out. And now I want to say that it's better. When I got out, there was absolutely nothing but LinkedIn and something to do my resume. But now there's so much out there that it's like drinking from a fire hose. So if you've ever gone into the bread section of a supermarket and you just stand there going, okay, that's what it's like. You just kind of like pick one.
Hmm.
And so when I have too many choices, I don't pick anything. And I think that's what's happening with people. And so I've really talked to other women veterans saying, get connected to women's veterans groups prior to getting out of the military. So you don't have that gap where here's where you got out and here's where you are. And there's no connection at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I love the women's veterans groups, but you have to be careful with those too. It's baby steps. We have to take, baby steps to correcting the mentality. Because if we can't fix our own, we're definitely not going to fix everybody else's.
We have to be more verbal, and be out there more. And I know that a lot of women don't see themselves as veterans because their own families sometimes don't see them as veterans. And someone tried to tell me that I wasn't a veteran because I didn't fight during a wartime. And I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah. I think you need to check your definition of a veteran there.
So stand up, women veterans, stand up.
I joined in May of 2002, right after 9/11. I joined the Air National Guard, so part-time, originally with my best friend. So we did a buddy system, and it was the shortest school to go and come back and get college paid for. And we were originally just going to do the first 6 years, and here we are. I just retired 22 years now on April 15th. So it's been quite a journey. I went from being part-time in the military in the Air National Guard to being full-time after my master's degree, and then back to part-time. I was a technician as a DoD employee as well. So I've kind of played a lot of different roles in several different career fields in my journey and in my career. And what the pivotal point was of transition was coming off of active duty, going back to part-time when I met my husband, who's also in the military.
When you transitioned out of the military the first time, did you go through a time where you didn't know who you were? I know I went through the same thing, and it was like after adapting to that atmosphere, because you do, like you touched on, was the male feminine part of it, is when you have to survive in a male dominated world, you adapt who you are. I know I used to get in the car at the end of the day and I would turn the radio off, and I just needed that time to kind of decompress, to get out of that headspace of being in that area. and to go home and to be able to be me. But when I retired, I didn't know who I was. And it was a real adjustment. So tell me about some of the things that you went through.
Yeah, so first I want to share just what I know about this shift of our identity, right? So in my studies and in my in a lot of the work that I do in the consulting world, in the diversity and inclusion world, thankfully that was my job in the military for the last 7 years. So I've been really studying a lot of this transition and losing one's identity and covering up pieces of ourselves. So in our world, in the inclusion world, is called covering. And it's a psychological shift of who you are to adapt and fit in spaces and places to belong and get along, or just not rock the boat if you, or be too emotional, right? And so it's no wonder why when you get in the car, you want silence and you're like, okay, I have to shift who I am to be a mom, or to walk in the door and be a wife, or to, take this uniform off. And then what else do I wear? What else am I defined by that it doesn't have to do with my rank? And so when I was stripped of that, actually the transition wasn't the first time that I felt this. I'll just want to share a quick story of the first time I felt this and what made that transition a little less painful. But the most painful transition was when I started my military career. I was just building. I was going through my senior year of my undergrad. I became an NFL cheerleader, which is like the pinnacle of a little girl's dream, right? There were 500 people that auditioned and I made it, right? And I didn't fit in. I wasn't your normal soldier. I'm a petite woman, 4'11" and 3/4. I am a lot of energy, NFL cheerleader, professional dancer, right? And people would literally say, you have too much energy. I can't talk to you before 9 a.m. Go sit in the corner and don't speak until you're spoken to. There were so many, I was shoved in a corner for so long that I just kept going and shut off that energy. And I shut off parts of myself to fit in. And it wasn't until, in my personal life, I also did that in the relationship that I was in. This was back in 2005. And I was being physically and emotionally abused. And so I just share that not to, for any, I had to advocate for myself. Right. And that season of my life, I was I'll just not forget, I was in a runway show for Spirit Halloween as an NFL cheerleader. And they told me that I had to be a witch for Halloween. Now I'm a high energy, I am not a witch. I'm an angel. Right. And everyone calls me the angel. So, for me to be a witch, it was a little bit odd for me to put this costume on. Right. But we just do, right? We do for the mission. We put the costume on, we wear the mask. And it was kind of interesting as I've kind of been dissecting it over time, how ironic this mask that I wore for so long and this costume that I wore really kept me playing small for a very long time. But anyways, I woke up on November 1st, 2005, and my right baby toe was bigger than my big toe. And I couldn't even put a shoe on. And then it turns out my right knee started hurting. And then my left knee started hurting. Then both my shoulders. And I ended up with lockjaw for 3 months. While my entire body shut down, the doctors had no clue what was wrong with me. All they told me was, stop working out. You're doing too much. You're overextending yourself. You're burnt out. Stop working out. You're nowhere did they ask me what trauma and what I had been dealing with at work and at home. And how I just put on that smile to be front and center and on the center of that field at halftime to perform and feel the worthiness while I was experiencing the emptiness and loneliness inside. So not only was I being, in this horrible situation, I ended up in a wheelchair for 6 months while I shopped for my first apartment. They gave me chemotherapy and steroid injections while I grew sideways in the wheelchair.
Wow.
So I went from NFL, starting my career, to injections, endless amounts of medication, ulcers, sores, you name it. I went through it. And then they tried to kick me out of the military.
Yeah.
So I went from the identity of girlfriend, NFL cheerleader, military, growing my career, about to graduate from my undergrad, to zero identity,
Mm.
being like, you're going to be on this medication for the rest of your life. You're never going to be able to be an athlete. You're never going to be able to walk again. Oh, and you're not going to be in the military anymore. So that was at the young age of 22, where I learned the power of mental health and asking for help. I got therapy. I learned journaling. I learned rebuilding myself from the core and advocating for myself and my health. Back then, they didn't have, Facebook and, YouTube and all that stuff, right? So I read Arthritis for Dummies, and I learned about the power of movement and medicine and nutrition. And I ended up getting off of all the medication and advocating with my doctors and saying, no, something's not right. And I ended up getting therapy and help. And I got off all the medication within a year, and I started running. And to this day, I've run 26 marathons and a 50-mile race, and I don't even take ibuprofen to this day.
Wow.
So that's the first. I know it's a lot, and I'm just going to let that kind of sink in for a second, because that was probably the scariest transition, amongst many others, but that really gave me the tools and the confidence to stand back up. So that to me was a very challenging time, but I asked myself a powerful question of like, what can I do with what I've got? What skills and passion and purpose can I continue to serve a mission that I can feel really good about, that I don't lose myself in the process and all these moves? And I built the skills to be able to do that. And it took a little bit, but now I'm about to celebrate 7 years in business. And, it has evolved since COVID. And now I host retreats all over the world. I'm a best-selling author. I'm a speaker. I have several programs. I have a global brand and an amazing team that I've been able to scale. And I'm here having great, beautiful conversations with you. So there is a way, and the only way is through, and by unpeeling the layers and seeing what's best for you in these moments.
I was a United States Navy corpsman for 25 years. So anybody that joined in 1999, hey, your girl made it. So it's so exciting to be at this part of the stage in my career and also my career path. So 25 years Navy. I did the corpsman rate the whole time. So I've been in the medical profession in different capacities. And now it's kind of surreal that I'm in a whole different career, but I am loving it. Yes. So I'll be doing finance now.
Nice. 25 years. I would have never you don't look that old.
Oh, thank you.
You look like you're 25, let alone serving 25 years in the military. So my Navy sister, what did you retire as?
A chief? Yes.
Oh, okay. So did I. I was a ET. I was electronics.
Oh, nice. Yes.
Yep. And I did 20 because my husband retired before I did. So he was like, it's time. Let's go.
Time.
Yeah. So, I probably would have stayed in longer, but, it was probably for everybody's safety that I retired when I did.
I understand that all too well. Yes.
Yeah. Tell us what you're doing now. I see all kinds of logos and stuff. So what all do you have going on now?
So right now I'm licensed as a financial professional with World Financial Group. So I serve families by helping them get into strategies for their money, get out of debt, set up life insurance, set up end of life policies, anything that you could think of that impacts your finances. I've been trained to sit down and go with you to make sure that you are not losing any of your hard-earned money.
I love that. That is, and I talk about this all the time because it is so important. And especially it's important for men, but I think it's more so for women because a lot of times, especially growing up, and it still happens, people don't talk about their kids about money.
Right.
And how are you supposed to learn? And I mean, being in the military for that long, that you get these kids in, it's the first time they've had any freedom. It's the first time they've had any real money.
Right.
And they go, and the next thing you know, they got an $800 car payment, on a BMW, and that they can't afford. That's their whole paycheck. And then the
Yeah.
next week they've got a wife and a kid, and you're like, so
Right.
how do you think this is going to work for you?
Exactly.
So you haven't officially transitioned, but what challenges have you found as you're transitioning out of the military?
Oh, yes, there are several that some of them, I wasn't aware of. So I really hope this helps somebody. I did not realize how military I was. We may think that, we're just going about, but I found and I'm finding that civilian world, they talk different, they move different, time is different. Like when you tell me that we have to be somewhere, and then everybody just kind of just casually coming in at 10, 15 minutes later, I'm like, what's going on? They're just like, oh yeah, we'll get to it. Those just little things like that. Boundaries are different, right? So that was a big hurdle for me to get over and how I wanted to present Tremaine to the world, because the military shows you how to present yourself. Hey, this is your uniforms that you're available to wear. And sometimes they even tell you which one to wear, right? For the different opportunities, different ceremonies. So just having all of that to contend with, it was overwhelming at first.
Yeah.
Because you can't wait until you're getting out to start developing how you are going to interact in the civilian sector. It's totally different. So if you're waiting on that, start today and get on out there, because you have to start creating your way of being outside of this uniform.
Mm-hmm.
I had to do a whole photo shoot just to represent and rebrand myself, because I didn't realize everybody only sees you as chief.
Yeah.
And that's hard to navigate if you haven't had to. So there's a retired Master Chief. He's been mentoring me in that, because I thought he was just joking, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he's brought up some things and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so right. So he's been working with me on my language, on what kind of dresser do you want to be? I wasn't thinking about that. I got my uniforms. I'm good, right? Well, how do you want to dress? So that's a challenge that you're going to have to navigate before you go to that 5-day class at TAP, where you show up the first day dressed and see everybody else in sweats and you're like, oh, okay, well, forget it, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big thing that I had to navigate. And then also how I saw myself needs to change.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a licensed financial professional. I'm not a chief. I'm not mom in that role. I'm not anything else, but I am in that capacity. So putting on that role with confidence, and then also the right demeanor that I wanted to be, that was a struggle to navigate, because I know how to chief real good, right? But that's not going to work in the sector that I'm going to. Because I'm also doing counseling too. So I really had to start to create this new way of thinking about myself. And then another aspect that's challenging is that the people that you've been doing life with, they don't readily accept your new role and capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm all excited. I'm charged up, fired up, because I got this new venture and I can see that it's going to just change the world, right? And everybody's like, you a chief. I'm not talking to you as a chief right now. I am Tremaine, the financial specialist. No, the financial professional. So it's very hard for people that you've been doing life with to accept your new role. Mm-hmm. So you're gonna have to be so confident and committed that doesn't sway you from launching out and getting started. Because I'm telling you, that was a big hurdle for me to overcome. And if I didn't have good coaches, I don't think that, I would really be vested in this process like I am. Yeah.
And that is part of the transition. Yeah. But I will warn you, you will have Navy dreams for years to come.
Oh my.
Yeah. 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 And that's where my heart is now, is to help these women make a faster, like I said, 10 years. And I feel like now, oh, okay, I'm good at this now.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't take that long.
Right. Yes.
You know?
That is
Yeah.
That is so true. This is such a phenomenal like mission that you have, because I'm finding like the connections I'm making in the civilian sector, women who support women, they do so much better.
Yeah.
Because the men, like, I don't know, it's just like this bro code or what, but they just naturally just default to a man.
Yeah.
Like even when I engage, or if they don't know if I'm male or female yet, they'll just automatically assume that it's a man or a male who is like the business owner or the business, lead or the business professional. So that is a big barrier that you're going to have to contend with.
Yeah.
So you got to have a strong group around you. You have to.
Yeah. And we as women do business differently than men.
Right.
We think differently. We are nurturers, but that is our superpower, not necessarily something that's going to hold us back. And working and supporting other women, I can just, and the women that I've talked to, it's been so much fun seeing the different talents and services, and my mind's already racing. I'm like, oh, I could do this and do this.
Right.
Yeah,
that would be phenomenal. We need that. Yeah.
I was in the military back in the day. I was in the Navy. I was only in for 4 years, and what else am I supposed to say? I'm sorry. And I totally spaced it.
That is okay. That's what I wanted to know.
We're just keeping it real, right? I was in for 4 years in the military. I went to be a photographer, ended up being a machinist mate for A6 intruders. So never got to be a a photographer, but ended up being a grease monkey. So yeah.
Wow. That's quite a shift there. No wonder you were only in for 4 years.
Very much so. But I loved it. I have no regrets. I met my husband there, and we're going to be celebrating 30 years of marriage in July. So it's so good.
Nice.
It's so good. Yeah.
Very. Congratulations on that. You don't hear a lot of success stories, when people meet in the Navy, because like my first husband, I met in the Navy. He was my first husband, but I did meet my second husband in the Navy, and this year will be 17 years. So
congratulations. Yeah, I love that.
So tell us about what you're doing now.
So now I am an empty nester, which is bittersweet. I feel like I'm at a special phase in my life. And I run my own business. I finally became a photographer. I was a late bloomer. I started my photography business in my early 40s. So just retired from weddings, and now I pivoted into personal branding photography. And then I teach the business side of photography, because when I started my business, I went into business because, I didn't know what to do with myself, and I love photography. So I felt that I was good at the creative side, but I majorly failed at the business side. And I think there's a lot of photographers like me that go into business because we're creatives. We love the creative side, but we don't understand the business side. So now I'm passionate about teaching other photographers the business side so they can make some money. Yeah, and I've had my business since, I've had it for 12 years, a little bit over 12 years.
I love the fact that you were so young and you got so much from it. Because, now because I know after being in 20 years, transitioning out of the military was harder than I thought it was going to be. I mean, besides finding another job, did you, were you, I guess, institutionalized is the phrase?
I would say to a degree, but I don't think to the degree with someone that stayed longer. I mean, it was 4 years. To me, my biggest challenge, I think, was, I think that if one thing the military can do for people that are leaving the military is train them to even do a resume, or because we don't, and maybe it's changed nowadays, but I didn't have the skills before, how do I do a resume? How do I look for a job? Because you go from a place that they pretty much tell you 24/7 what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, right? Yep. to now it's like it's all on you. Like you have to make all these choices yourself, right? And so I think that the hardest thing for me was I was still very young. I'm in a new state, and I'm still trying to figure out who I am and what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and not having other than my husband, which he was my boyfriend at that time, and then my two roommates, Rick and Blake, who were also in the military, that I moved in with them. That was my little circle support group.
Mm-hmm.
And so that made it a little challenging and a little hard. And I think I would say that maybe having a mentor, somebody to kind of guide me, and not necessarily telling me what to do, but sometimes you need people to speak into your life and or you can bounce ideas from. That was my things, like being in a place where I knew 3 people, maybe 4, and trying to figure out as a 22-year-old what I want to do.
Yeah.
So I think that was my biggest challenge.
Yeah.
And I never really, before joining the military, I worked part-time at Olin Mills, not really having a real civilian job before, because I wouldn't say, Olin Mills gave me a little bit of experience, but it's not like I went job hunting before I joined the military. So it's like, so how do you, now I'm an adult, because before, when I used to work at Olin Mills, I think I started at 15, 16 years old, but now I'm in the adult world. Like what do adults do?
Yeah. How do I do?
Because I went to the military, my recruiter told me everything I wanted to do. And once I signed up and I was in Florida, they still tell me what to do. I didn't have to make decisions for myself. And now I'm having to make decisions for myself.
Yeah.
And questioning whether, is this the right thing? Am I going to make enough money to pay rent and all of that?
Yeah.
And is this really what I want to do? So I would say, I don't know if I answered your question, but I would say that kind of was my biggest challenge, trying to figure out who I was and who I wanted to be, I guess.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, after 20 years, I did the same thing when I retired. It was like, what do I do with all this free time? And what do I like to do? Mm-hmm. I don't even know who I am after 20 years of being told what to do.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a journey, but, mm-hmm. So that's good to know that, at 22, you went through the same thing that I did at 48.
Yeah. Well, and I would think sometimes, looking back, I would think that it might be a little bit harder, like I said earlier, for someone that stayed in the military longer than 4 years, because, how long were you in the 20 years? Is that what?
20, yeah.
A lot of things change in 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And you change a lot in 20 years.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I think at times it might be a little bit more challenging for someone that has been in the military longer than someone that's been 4 years. I think my problem was me trying, to a degree, I was still somewhat naive and gullible, and, still growing. I was 22 years old.
Yeah. And that has its own challenges,
Mm-hmm.
coming in right out of high school, right out of mom and dad's house. The military is the first real freedom you've had.
Yeah.
And, you're thrown into this world that is not normal by any stretch of the imagination. And you have to kind of figure it out and maneuver your way as a young person. That's a lot.
Yes. But even like in the military, you don't have to worry about paying rent, paying utility, because all of that stuff is provided for you. So now that you're in the real world, and it's like, oh, and I don't have mom and dad either. Like, I'm on my own here. Like, I got to figure this thing out, which, I embraced it. I don't know if I would say it was easy yet, but I did good,
Yeah, sounds like it. Now I know when I got out, they were doing, they called it TAP, Transition Assistance Program, I think is what it was. And the problem with it was a week and you had to go, and they spent more time, like 3 out of 5 days was all about resume writing, dressing for an interview, conducting an interview. And I'm like, hey, my husband and I already own a business. He's in Tennessee running the business. I'm in Virginia finishing up my time. I don't need to write a resume. What else do you have for me? You know, and they're like, well, we don't have anything. But can I go back to my command? No, you have to have so many hours of being here. It's a check in the box.
Yeah, I don't remember having anything like that unless I was drunk most of the time. I'm just kidding. I didn't really get. I did drink in the military. I'm not going to lie, but not to the excess that I was drunk. But no, I don't remember us having any of that. Of that guidance and support. It's just like, okay, back, in 92, they were letting people out early too, for whatever reason. And so I think they were just like in a hurry to get people out of the military. And at least that's how I felt too. It's like, okay.
Yeah, you can go home now.
Yeah, you can go. Where is home now? I'm still trying to figure out because I don't want to go back to East LA.
Well, I tell you what, I have so enjoyed getting to know you and hearing your story and your experiences. And I'm so glad they were good experiences.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, like just like anything, there's bad, but not so many bad ones. I always like to focus on the positive stuff. And I have a lot of appreciation for the years, like I said, that I was in the military, and I'm very grateful for that. And these are memories that, I'm going to carry throughout my life forever and ever. And hopefully I can share some of those with my great grandkids someday.
I was in the Navy back in 89 for one whole year, 89 to 90. So.
All right. Well, and we're going to go back to that, but tell us what you're doing now and this might take, I warn y'all, this might take a while. So
now I have a cybersecurity division chief for a government agency. And so that's what I'm doing now.
Nice. So tell them all the other stuff that you do.
Oh, all the extra, like the painting behind you. So I have a lot of activities because my brain is like always going. So I am an acrylic pour artist. I poured the painting behind April. I also am now into encaustic art, which is it goes back to the ancient Egyptians, and it's a mixture of beeswax and resin that you add pigment to, and you paint with that. So that's been kind of interesting. When I'm not trying to do new paintings or new art techniques, then I'm in the Outer Banks trying to learn how to kiteboard because, at 52 years old, you're just not too old to learn. So.
That is true.
Not agree with me, but
And every time I talked to her, she was telling me about this new paint technique and everything. And she's like, oh, and I'm going to start making my frames. I said, well, of course you are. So nothing, it's always an adventure to see what adventure she's on now. So let's talk about your military service. It was only a year, and there's a whole story with that. So
there is. So I guess, we really get it started because the 1 year I do credit that for where I am today because of the skill set it taught me. So you and I know that I had a tumultuous childhood, to say the least. And I found myself out in the street at a very young age, long before I even graduated high school. In fact, I wasn't really even afforded the opportunity to graduate high school. So there I was with a GED just before my 18th birthday, and I met a recruiter, and they said this would give me skills and put me on a better path in life. And so originally I went in to the Navy Reserves because that's what would take you with a GED, even, geez, it sounds crazy to say even 30 years ago plus. So that's where I went. I went into the Navy Reserves and on the delayed entry program. And it saved my life. Boot camp gave me the discipline and the discipline and the skills needed to adult in life, right? Because I didn't have that. I was a street kid for better. You couldn't really, there was nothing you could take from me. There was nothing you could do to me. I wasn't afraid of anybody. I even had that struggle somewhat in boot camp. But what I liked about boot camp was it was regimented and the rules were clear, and it was black and white in a time where everything in my life was gray.
Besides the whole black and white and coloring outside the lines, that's the way it is. So, in a lot of ways, you got that military training anyway.
I did. And it's funny because I don't know what made me special. I do feel special.
Special.
You took me under your wing. There were a lot of chiefs at that command that seemed to gravitate toward me and take me under their wing. And so I don't know if it was my husband's a chief. I don't know what it was. Maybe they knew Jerry and they felt sorry for me because he's kind of hard ass. I'm just kidding.
Your husband was a chief.
I don't know what it was, but all these chiefs did take me under their wing, and I learned so much, but I was open to it. I think by that time I felt so grateful, and I still do, grateful and lucky to have that, and I realized then, I think that's the first time I realized it took me 20 years to get back there. So I still had so much of my street-like ways. I couldn't get out of my own way. And at that point is when they should have probably put me out anyway, because I couldn't get out of my own way. But I got to go through, and like I said, it wasn't long after. And I was still that way, fearless when I got to my duty station. Fearless.
At least it gave you that view of another way of life.
I was in for 20 years. The Navy was an IT when I retired back in 2014. So it's been almost 10 years. The 1st of June will be 10 years since I retired. And a lot has happened. A lot has changed since I retired. Did several deployments on ground, on ship, a couple of injuries, but here I am. It's been an experience. It was a tough chapter at times. There were some good times and there were some bad times, but yeah, it was pretty much my career. Is very rewarding. I retired as a chief. I could have stayed in longer, but I decided I didn't want to spend 2 more years without my son. So I went ahead and dropped papers and closed that chapter.
So tell us what you're doing now.
So now I am a substitute teacher. And I love it because I still get to help. Well, back when I was in the Navy, I helped sailors, and now I'm helping high schoolers. So it's perfect for me because I don't work weekends, I don't work holidays, don't work nights. We get summers off. So, and my husband and I like to travel a lot. So for me, that was the perfect job when I was first contemplating on doing it. And then now that I'm doing it, I really enjoy it, and the school really appreciates any help that they can get. And it's helpful for the students, especially the ones that want to join the military at a high school. I do let the students know when I'm subbing. I just give them a snapshot of my background, and I'll get kids that are wanting to join the Marines or the Air Force and even the Navy come up and they want to talk more about it and kind of prepare for it. I also, after I retired, obtained 2 master's degrees. So even the kids that are wanting to go into college, I've been giving them tips and recommendations on scholarships and things to study for, different occupations that they could find to do with whichever type of degree that they're looking for. So that's kind of what I've been doing now, kind of helping students and then subbing.
So when you transitioned, because your husband was also military,
Mm-hmm.
Did he retire before you did?
I retired first. When I was transitioning, I talked to him a lot about what to expect, what he might go through, what he might feel. And he was like, yeah, okay. He heard me. I don't know if he listened. So once he retired, and then he started going through all those emotional roller coasters, I was like, this is what I had mentioned about. And so we just kind of kept the open communication going. because really that's the only way working through that is if you could just keep talking about it and talking to someone about it and getting it out, especially to someone who's already gone through it. It helped.
So when I retired, I thought there was something wrong with me because it looked so easy for him. Like he would get up every morning with me and have breakfast with me. And then I would say, "Oh, what are you doing today?" "Well, I'm going to work out." "Okay. And then what are you going to do?" What's some of the things that you remember experiencing as you transitioned?
I did have stressors that went on throughout my whole military experience. And because I was so busy, with being active duty, being a single parent, having a kid with special needs, and then school whenever I could squeeze it in, I didn't really mentally process any of the stressors that I had going on inside of me.
Mhm.
So as I was retiring, all of that stuff started to come forward.
I first want to say that I've always had a heart to serve, and I felt what better way to serve than by serving my country. So I joined the military in October of 1990, and I served 13 years honorably as a cryptologic technician. Basically, I was a code breaker. I helped the military keep their secrets a secret. If I told you more, I'd have to come find you and, take you out of here. And I know you don't want me to do that. So that's what I did in a nutshell. I am a mother, a grandmother, a transformational speaker, life recovery coach, and an advocate. And I love. I live, move, breathe, and eat, helping women to create heart-to-heart connections, hearing what they're saying, sensing what they're not saying, and journeying with them along the path to healing and wholeness after adversity, after trauma.
So not only did you have to, when you transitioned out of the military, not only did you have to adjust to the civilian world, you were in long enough where you were, what they call it, institutionalized.
Yes.
But you also had that trauma to deal with. And I know that was part of the process, but was it an immediate part of the process, or is that something that years later as you work through everything? Yeah.
So the transition out of the military was, a lot of it had to do with the trauma of not only what I encountered in the military and, what they diagnosed me with, but also just wanting to really fight to save not just my family, but my worth, my value, because growing up in a military family, that was my identity. That was my value. That was my contribution to the world. And I felt like I wasn't valuable anymore to my community or to, my nation or to my family. And so making that transition, trying to deal with the trauma, trying to figure out who I was in the community, and trying to re-identify who I was as a person, as a woman, as a mother, as a wife at the time. It was just a lot. And going into the civilian community was nothing like the military. We thrive and live on structure. Mm-hmm. We get up every day knowing what we're supposed to do, what the objective is, and getting out, it's like, well, what do I do? Mm-hmm. Who am I? What is my purpose? How do I navigate this system? Because even with the health care and the insurance, all that, it's a given in the military. But when you get out, you got to figure out, okay, what kind of insurance do I qualify for? Where, what kind of jobs am I qualified? What kind of positions am I qualified for?
Like you said, I mean, you're dealing with motherhood all of a sudden, and it's not like you had the child before while you were in, but your situation changes. Then all of a sudden that you're out.
Right.
Right. And then all of a sudden you're out, you're like, oh, does this mean I have to grow up?
Yeah. Well, I hope to never completely grow up, but
that's because we're a Toys R Us kid.
Right. But trying to figure out who I was outside of being a mother and being, in the military, I had so many achievements and accomplishments. They celebrated us and gave us awards and certificates when we succeeded. And so I was used to that. And so getting out and trying to figure out, okay, well, where can I use this gift? Where can I use this skill? And then realizing that I'm just another person. I'm just a number. I'm one of many that are out here, trying to make their way in life. And because I was so used to structure, trying to tap into that creative side in me, because I have we all have a creative side, but trying to figure out how to cultivate that in an atmosphere and an environment that was all about, I felt like it was all money based. That was the bottom line. That the dollar, that was the bottom line. That was the goal, and nothing else mattered. And that's just not how I'm led. I'm heart led. I want to create impact. I want to create influence, in a positive way. People, I want to pour into people. I want to help them improve, because that's one of the things that is innately within me and what God had created me to do. And so just getting into that environment, it was depressing, and it was debilitating, because in all of that, I was still trying to navigate and manage, at the time, saving my marriage, raising my daughter, bringing in income into the household, just trying to find my place in the community, trying to find a place of worship in a community, because I firmly believe we were created for connection and community. And without that community and circle of support, and without that accountability, long-term success is not sustainable. And I just couldn't find my tribe.
I came onto active duty right out of high school. So 19 something. I served 4 years. I got out. I went to college. Graduated from college. I joined the reserves. I swore, I didn't ever want to see another uniform, yada, yada, yada. I got off of active duty in July. I was in the reserves by November. Whatever. I said never, and there you go. So anyway, I was in the reserves all through college. And then thereafter, I spent 15 years total in the reserves, did 2 deployments. End of my last deployment, I decided it's time to go back on active duty. They were just beginning to take NAVETs or OSVETs, other service veterans, into the Navy. So I was one of the first few, which it was kind of painful. Now they do it on the regular, so it's no big deal. But I got back on active duty in 2007 and finished up 20 years of active duty and 33 years of service December of 21.
Nice. Yeah, because when we served together in Guam, that was your first duty station back in.
It was.
And just for the record, ladies, if they ever tell you, you can come back in, but we're going to send you here, there's a reason they send you there.
Yeah. And that's exactly what happened too.
Yeah. So tell everybody what you're doing now.
So right now, ironically enough, I work at the Navy's only boot camp at Recruit Training Command. I have nothing to do with the recruits. I see them every day, but I have nothing to do with them. I work in the office that processes the officers or the candidates for officer candidate school.
Now, I know you went through a process when you retired, and I want to tell you that you were one of my motivating factors for doing this. And, and that's not in a bad way, but, and I know what I went through when I retired, and it shouldn't be that hard, and it shouldn't take that long.
I think everybody's different.
Yeah, that's true. Everybody's different. But what I want these women to know that what they're going through, there's nothing wrong with them.
No, they're not alone. There's nothing wrong with everybody's path is different. Some people may only take a year to figure stuff out. For me, it took 2. For some, I worked with a lady who was out for 3 before she came back. She was active duty Army. So, and healing is not linear. We would love to think it's just like every day it gets a little bit better, but that's just not the way it happens. You take, what is that old saying, 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. Sometimes it's 5 steps forward and 15 steps back, and you just wake up and keep going. I mean, it's just, I think the most important thing for me was forward mobility. And there was days I didn't have it.
Yeah.
There were days I literally slept for 24 hours.
Mm-hmm. So-
like
What is some of the things, because I came down for your retirement, you left Virginia, you went up to Chicago, and what then? Because it was definitely,
Chicago wasn't really a new city because I did a tour through here, so it wasn't really new to me. It was something that I came back through here. You see things in hindsight. I think I came back through here because this was where I was when Don't Ask, Don't Tell went away.
Mhm.
So this was the first place I actually got to figure out what it was like to be me and who that person was. And that was really weird for me. Because that was in 2011. So I was 41 years old at that point. And that was the first time in my life I was getting to figure out who I was without any filters or this or that and the other. I had been doing the fast pace military, pick your stuff up and move every 3 years. Anyway, it was time for me to be still and figure out who I was, what I wanted, the way ahead kind of thing. Female veterans are not seen as much as male veterans. You tell me I'm not invisible, but how about show me? Like, I know we're in Illinois, not Missouri, but show me. So I went through counseling because I explained, like, I don't feel depressed, but I don't want to do anything. You've been doing this a really long time, and now you're not doing it anymore. And oh, by the way, I think you still have a divorce that you haven't really dealt with. And then, oh, by the way, you've got 33 years of service, and now you got to figure out who you are without the Navy. I knew this was where I needed to be. Like, in my gut, I knew this is where I needed to be, because whatever this is, this place allowed me just to heal, I guess, for lack of a better word, just heal. And it really was, like the counselor said, just do a half a box or one box, or just put one thing away. Just do one thing. If you don't want to do all the laundry, just do one load. Like, just do one little thing. And then finally somebody suggested, get a puppy. But I tell you, there were times that I knew getting him was going to force me to get up and force me to go outside and force me to do things I didn't want to do. And I got him. Knowing all that, I got him. And then I still resent him sometimes for it. Or I did. Like, how dare you want to go out again? We just went. So I have to remind myself to be patient. So he has helped me more in my healing process. He really did make a really big impact on my life. So yeah, transition wasn't near as easy as I thought it was going to be. But if I had anything to say, give yourself the same grace that you would give other people. And don't judge yourself so harshly. And if you only do one positive thing that day, that's great.
Hi, I hope you have enjoyed hearing our speakers as much as I've enjoyed bringing them to you. Just a little bit about me. I am a 20-year Navy veteran. I retired in 2014. I can't believe that this will be 10 years. So what am I doing now? What I'm doing now is I'm bringing this to you. I have, over the last 10 years, I've done a lot of self-development, and I knew I wanted to have my own business. I knew I wanted to help people, but I really couldn't put my finger on what I wanted to do, where I wanted to concentrate. And finally, I've discovered that I want to concentrate on you. I want to concentrate on women just like me that have been in the military and are either getting ready to transition into civilian life or are already doing it. Maybe you're watching this at home, you've been out for a year or two, or maybe longer, and you've just never felt like you've gotten your identity dialed in, or you haven't found yourself, your true voice. Well, I'm here to tell you it is a process and it takes time. And that if you get anything out of this, that's the one thing that I would love for you to get out, is that you're not alone. We've all gone through it in one way or the other. So don't sit at home and think that I'm the only person that this has happened to. I'm the only person that felt this way, because I did that. I thought that I was the only one. I thought, what's wrong with me? Like I said before, if nothing else, that you're not the only person going through it, and you're not going through it alone. So please plug in to our Facebook community. It's Women Who Have Served. Notice, not veterans, women who have served. Join us. Share some of the things that you're going through, and and share this with a friend. If you know other women who are going through this and having trouble adjusting. And like I said, it doesn't matter if you're still in, you've been out for a minute, or you've been out for 30 years. We still have things that we're carrying with us. So my goal through all of this and through everything that I do at this point in my life is to make your transition easier, to let you know that it's okay, some of the things that you've gone through. And I beg you, if you have suffered from PTSD, MST, please get help. If you don't want to talk to the VA, then you know what? There's plenty of other private counselors out there. If you need help finding them, please let me know. Reach out to me, because I just want you to be healthy and happy and have a fulfilling life that you deserve. I want you to be happy. I want you to be full of passion and purpose and do what you were put on this earth to do, because you are not an accident and you're here for a purpose. That's all I have. Hopefully y'all have had a good time this week, and we will talk soon. Love you. Be blessed. Bye.